thank you for sticking around, and I'm looking forward to this chat. Right, okay, I just feel a little bit of that adrenaline which hits you as you just get up on stage, and I'm just hoping for us all that my fight instinct kicks in instead of my flight, and that is what it is to be human, and that's what I'm going to talk a bit about today. So I guess that it's a good lead into us sharing this time together to talk about what it is to be human and the awesome ways that technology can work with our humanness to create valuable customer experiences. So let's get started. Let's talk about the real value of your customer conversations. I'm not talking about the online ones, I'm not talking about the chat box, I'm not talking about the form completions or online purchases, and I'm not talking about what happens in store. What I am referring to is what us humans have in our DNA. That is that we have our voice, that we like to talk and converse, which is generally these days done over the phone. Now I know that the challenge for the modern marketer is sometimes to avoid that conversation at all costs. I think that might be a familiar story for many of us in the room. And this is generally driven by finance and operations that want to still cut OPEX as part of their KPIs. And it's also part of an executive that wants more margin to appease the economists. We also, in a digital world, seem to be able to measure what happens online a lot easier. However, today, in a world we live in that is influenced by our humanness, where phone calls influence $1 trillion worth of call commerce. So at some stage, that had a telephone call as part of its path to purchase. Mobile calls represent 60% of the inbound calls to business in 2016. In this, it equals to 85 billion global telephone calls. And that was just this year. This is going to grow to 169 billion calls to your businesses in 2020. Calls are driven by complexity. So that is where the value of a call increases in businesses where there's a high value on new acquisition. And as well as categories that are close to new business, over the phone, such as financial services, home services, professional services, such as lawyers and doctors, buying life cycle in insurance, new cars, real estate, and just a few of the many purchases for which buyers need more detailed information to make that decision. So when it comes to the mean transaction value of what it takes to get that phone call, it's actually a lot less than what you can imagine. Only $320 when it comes to the travel industry. So whilst there are many ways to have that conversation these days in an omni-channel world, there are big influences on why this will still significantly happen over the phone. That's because of mobile first, that is because of millennials and the on-demand persona, it is because of chatbot and online overflow. It is because, as humans, we like to have relationships and we like to talk as part of them. We like to exchange information in our conversations, and that is how we build trust. We build trust as humans this way. We see an increase in call conversions coming from most channels, primarily from search marketing, from landing pages, and from social. Whilst we are all marketing professionals here, we are also customers. So, my own personal experience. I know that I'm a loyal customer, but when I search for something and I do not get, and I'm supposed to have my mobile phone here, but I do not get a click to call button, well, I might likely go somewhere else, like 47% of your other prospects who will do the same. If I do get to your website and you don't provide me a number to call you on, I feel like you just don't care about me. It's like a needle in a haystack sometimes these days, isn't it? Trying to get that number, trying to dig through the website, someone to call. And this is where as a prospect, I may lose interest. And I might seek someone who's actually easier to do business with. If I'm your customer, however, I might start feeling a bit unvalued. I might start feeling a bit frustrated, and I might start thinking that I would like to go and find somebody else who might value me more. And I feel that way quite often when I'm dealing with people that I buy from, because I end up quite frustrated by the time they pick up that phone. They have to listen to me complain about my journey for at least the first 3 minutes of that call before I then move on to what I've called them for. It's just me. So, when I call you and I get onto that person, that valuable person that's picked up the phone to me, well, I'm grateful. I just absolutely love that conversation and being able to get what I need. But if I can't get through easily, I do get frustrated. And if you're easy to do business with, and if you serve me in the ways that I like to be served, well, I'm your customer forever. Absolutely forever. I never switch. But this is me leading up to that moment. So even e-commerce companies have recognized the lifetime value of a customer. And a lifetime customer for an e-commerce business can actually be worth 5 times more than somebody that had reached them online. And that is because they value the relationship. And this is how they build trust with that business. And a human just isn't providing that. A computer doesn't provide that, not just yet. So people are going to call your business 85 billion times this year. And let's look at how we can explore how you can unlock that value in that conversation. So, what does a conversation tell you about your customers these days? Is it possible that the fate of a relationship can be told early on in terms of what's going to happen from that first interaction that we have with each other? Some 35 years ago, a psychologist pioneered the science of predicting relationship dissolution and longevity based on conversations between married couples. I quite like this one. In a lab, he brought some couples together and he made 3 recordings of 15-minute conversations. The conversations were coded for the presence of various behaviours and emotional expressions. Oh, I'm pushing the wrong one there. My apologies. Getting to the important one now. So, based on the patterns observed, they were able to predict within 83 and 94% accuracy which couples were going to end in divorce from those conversations. These predictions were actually accurate when they were made within the first 3 minutes of that conversation. So that would have been valuable to a few of us in the room. So right now, it's possible to track your customer's journey in an online to offline omnichannel world. With call analytics platforms, we have the ability to attribute the vast majority of our inbound calls to the campaign that generated them, right down to the keyword. We know the exact search term that was used in the search engines. We know the display ad and the interaction on social. We know the emails that have been put through. We know and we can tell what led to the customer journey. When somebody has come to your website, we can see what pages that they browsed before they made that call. We know what IVR selections they made when they actually got through. We know that we've got speech analytics, which I'll talk about a bit more in a moment. When we take a step further, we can link this data with your analytics platforms. We can link it with bid optimization tools. We can look at your ERP and CRM systems and get that holy grail that marketers always need to close the loop from the campaign spend to the actual dollars in the door. Or we can actually look at cookie data and we can look at BI tools. I quite like the Domo sort of cards that they have where they have a raft of behaviours on scorecards and you can overlay your call data over that. So a call can be used to customise and personalise the customer journey at each critical stage of the customer's relationship with you. given a call is the most indicative of an intent to buy, it is actually a critical point and something to be considered within your marketing mix. So technologies that will influence this landscape in the future, I call it big voice. It's a little bit what the database used to be to big data. Now we've got the call, and it's now big voice. So technologies that will influence this landscape include speech analytics. It is also sometimes referred to as audio mining. You've probably heard of that through Google. So typically a speech analytics solution comprises of a search engine that converts speech to data. We then have an indexing layer that actually makes it searchable. The speech analytics can drive a reduction in operating costs for organisations by providing insight from calls and recordings which can be used to improve future interactions with the caller. So normally that's actually done by sort of, your call centre person who's going to sort of go and listen to a couple of calls and try to grab a good example and then share that with the team or share that with their agent. But this kind of sort of application, you can actually look at all calls, data mine all of your calls and find those gems within them. We can find opportunities where the caller is a potential upsell or cross-sell candidate, and we can check whether the agent is approaching that appropriately in terms of their dialogue, their persuasive ability, and how they overcome objections. Speech analytics not only gives organisations the opportunity to better understand the likes of customer satisfaction, customer churn, customer experience, so that the improvements can be driven, but by listening to what customers are saying and picking up on their emotions, other actions can be driven off the back of it. So we can then use predictive modeling. We can begin to understand which conversations and which products yield the most success. We can unearth golden nuggets, like the contact drivers that are linked to particular product sales. In real time, we'll be able to model and predict in call how a customer is likely to behave and predetermine the approaches that will generate the highest potential using personalisation tools. And that's personalisation tools online, and it's also personalisation tools in call. Speech analytics, as I said, will give you an opportunity to look at all your calls and optimise each one. In the future, real-time call analytics will be interfacing with speech analytics, predictive modelling, personalisation, to create the ideal customer experience, pushing data across all of your MarTech stack, making the conversation truly a valuable asset. So, as with any journey, we need a starting point to build the foundations to big voice. This is where we start the future-driven call analytics solution. We start with what we can do now. This is available today. We can measure and attribute. Every call is attributed to its source and incorporated into analytics. It's incorporated into your analytics side by side with your online conversions. We are then able to provide accurate conversion metrics. We can lower your CPAs. We can increase your campaign performance. So it's not because you've done anything different. It's just simply because you're measuring accurately. You're capturing that 49% gap of calls that come from search. Partnering with your agencies, this data is integrated with advertising and bid management tools and our campaign budgets that used to be weighted. We now weight them on call conversion data, and we allocate our spends to those campaigns appropriately, and we get the highest sort of valued conversions instead of actually optimizing them against lower valued goals. We automate call behavior, insights into our omnichannel view of the customer journey so that we, as marketers, can create the customer experiences, the human experiences that set us apart from the competition while giving us optimal marketing and sales performance. Well, that's going to keep our finance, and it's going to keep our operations, and it's going to keep our economist friends nice and happy. And as technology progresses, we simply add the new data sets in, and we become masters of our own universe, as us marketeers always want to be. So to conclude, whilst I've shown you some of the interesting stuff up here on the screen, and some attractive numbers and a couple of pictures. Appealing to your visual cortex when I've had a chance to flip a slide. I hope that you've actually felt that the real magic is in what I've actually said to you today and what I've said to you in conversation. So if you'd like to know a bit more about an advanced call analytics platform to get yourself started, Delacon's team is out there. They can answer all of your questions, and I'll probably have a little bit of time to be able to answer some of these questions for you. And I thank you dearly for listening. Thank you.